painted sunsets, tinsel skies, paper moons, chalk drawings of vlogging backgrounds. It must be time to look at the world's longest running musical. Not the longest running musical on Broadway, the longest running musical, period. The infinitely superior off-Broadway production that ran for 42 years and then enjoyed a revival in 2006 that is still running. On its surface, The Fantasticks is a fairly simple love story about a boy and a girl who fell in love because their fathers pretended to hate each other to manipulate them into doing so. Simple enough. The plan works, the boy and the girl fall in love, and they all live happily ever after. But, as is also the case in Into the Woods, then comes Act 2. And the musical turns out to be a much deeper look at the dichotomy between our romanticized impression of love and the harsh realities of, well, the real thing. Jump cut. Hatter? Scotty! I'm a little busy right now. I kinda... No, you're not. You know as well as I do that there's a lull in the activity. You just don't want to do this review.
Damn right I don't. And what exactly are you sitting in front of?
My reviewing space. Where else? See, here's the pictures and the staff, and I hung up my suit coat because it's a little warm in here, so I'm not wearing that right now, but...
Uh-huh. Well, as Scotty pointed out, I really don't want to do this one. Here in the Bandgeek 8408 reviewing world, we like to be pretty open-minded about adaptations. I like to think that there is no story that cannot cross over into another medium if it's adapted properly. This goes for books being turned into movies as well as stage plays being turned into movies. The Fantasticks, however, is a very big test of that theory. The thing about the Fantasticks is that it's very stage-centric. Sets and props are minimal, the thing really doesn't take place in the real world, the characters constantly interact with the audience, and the whole thing is kind of centered around being a suspension from reality. Making this into a movie, therefore, which basically requires the exact opposite of all those things, is something of a challenge. Nevertheless, in 1995, director Michael Ritchie made the attempt, and if you're going to adapt the Fantasticks into a movie, this is most certainly not the way to do it. But I suppose we've had too many good movie adaptations in this series, we're about to hit a bad one eventually, so let's take a look in this episode of From Stage to Screen of The Fantasticks.
Let's begin with the individual performance of this movie. The Fantasticks deals largely in abstractions, and therefore the characters start out largely as stereotypes. You've got your hopelessly romantic couple. The boy loves the girl and loves doting on her, but also wants to be the hero, and he wants adventure. And the girl loves the boy, but at the same time, she wants to be loved herself, and she wants the boy to dote on her and tell her sweet things. You've got the two fathers who truly want what's best for their children, but are totally misguided on how to bring that about. And you've got El Gallo, who is basically the narrator, the mastermind, and the villain all rolled into one character. However, as the story progresses into the second act, we see them face the consequences of their previous actions, and the stereotypes melt away, revealing real people. You also have the characters who are helping to maintain the illusions in Act 1, namely Old Henry, Mortimer, and the Mute. The Mute basically acts as the set and the props and, well, basically everything else. Ideally, the musical should end with our 5 characters having completed their character arc, having each learned something, and having emerged as real people who we can sympathize with.
Let's start with the good aspect of the movie's performance. Joel Grey. Even though the role he plays isn't really one of the main protagonists, he gets top billing in this movie, and there's a reason. Joel Grey is, well, actually trying. How he got roped into this train wreck, I don't know, but he plays the part very well. When the second father shows up, however, this quality of acting proves to be pretty detrimental. It's pretty clear that the other actor playing the other father can neither sing nor act, and so watching him try to sing and act alongside Joel Grey is doubly painful. Our 2 romantic leads are meh. Matt, the boy, I swear, keeps the same expression on his face throughout the entire movie. And the girl, Louisa, who is sadly not Natalie Portman despite a startling resemblance, just isn't written well. The actress does alright, but the thing about Louisa in the first act is that she's supposed to come off as selfish, flighty, and annoying because she's selfish, flighty, and annoying. The movie has her as the right-minded protagonist throughout pretty much the entire movie. Also, there's absolutely no chemistry between these two actors at all. The lack of soul in their romance is really quite astounding. The other actors do alright. El Gallo's characterization completely sucks, but again, that's more of a writing problem than a performance problem. The thing about El Gallo is that he exists both in the story and outside of it. He's manipulating the events of the story both within the story as a mischievous trickster and outside the story as the sort of omnipotent narrator trying to teach these two kids a lesson. But the movie only gives us the inside the story portion of his character, which means he comes off as kind of a douche, especially at the end. Old Henry and Mortimer also do fairly well. Mortimer is played by Teller of Penn and Teller fame, and so therefore he is mute. And he wasn't mute in the stage play. I think they're trying to combine his character with that of the mute in the stage play, but he doesn't really exhibit any other characteristics of that character, so I'm not really sure why they went in that direction with him. Bottom line, aside from Joel Grey, the performances in this movie range from just okay to dear God, why? And I'm sorry, Joel. I love you. I really do. But you're just not enough to save this performance from the fail that it deserves.
But now an especially important aspect for this musical, the setting. The stage musical, as I mentioned before, really has no setting to speak of. It's set in an ambiguous world of abstractions and metaphors. Our two lovers and their fathers live in a world that is entirely their own and is entirely the creation of the other four characters in the musical: El Gallo, Old Henry, Mortimer, and the Mute. Sets, props, and even situations all come from these four characters. And yet, there is a reality to this setting as well, namely the fact that they are all dealing with a situation that we can relate to: forbidden love. And the whole musical is about how we romanticize this concept and create our own flimsy stories to support it. But when cast in the light of day, the harsh realities of the situation begin to sink in. Love hurts, it has consequences, and it's very, very hard. So this story is really at its most effective when it deals mostly in abstractions and has a setting that is ambiguous.
The movie did what movies always do, imposed reality upon the story. And most of the time, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. In this case, El Gallo is basically the ringmaster of a traveling carnival, and he uses the smoke and mirrors at his disposal to create all of the Act 1 situations as well as the scenes with Louisa in Act 2. Which seems like it should work, but wow. Wow, it does not. Okay, to be fair, the Act 1 stuff isn't that bad. It's kind of fun watching El Gallo conduct the orchestra and throw snow at them and all that sort of thing, though even then they set up reality just a little bit too well, so I'm just thinking, wait, do they seriously not see him sitting up in the tree? Also, the song Soon It's Gonna Rain is supposed to be one of the few genuine moments in Act 1, and it's really not in the movie. In fact, in general, the scenes that are supposed to seem real and authentic seem more fake. In Act 2 of the stage play, Matt goes off to see the world, prodigal son style, and Louisa does something similar with El Gallo, but in a more abstract way. While El Gallo is manipulating Louisa so that she sees everything in the world through rose-colored glasses, Matt is experiencing the real horrors of the real world, courtesy of Old Henry and Mortimer. So Louisa is actually seeing Matt suffer, but because of the abstractions that they've set up in the play, we still buy that Matt actually did go out into the real world and suffer real harsh realities. In the movie, because they made everything real, Matt is literally kidnapped and taken to the carnival and tortured by Old Henry and Mortimer, which once again makes El Gallo out to be a complete douche. I'll admit that on its own, the setting looks pretty good. I love the contrast between the two houses, and the sheer nothingness of the location really serves to illustrate how cut off they are. But context is everything, and in the context of this show, it doesn't work. It aggressively doesn't work. It's another fail.
Now onto cinematography and editing. Again, this story revolves around it being a stage musical, and therefore they use a lot of stage magic in the telling of the story. Most importantly, they use a lot of suggestion, with the mute specifically standing in for a lot of the sets and the props and so on. The fence, for example, which is the focal point of the first act, is played by the mute. Lighting can be used to simulate both the romantic light of the moon in Act 1 and the harsh light of the sun in Act 2. And there are a lot of really creative ways to do the song Round and Round, which shows Louisa ignoring the harsh realities of the real world while Matt experiences them. And it's at this point where you really have to ask the question, is it just plain impossible to adapt this play into a movie? With the story being so stage-centric, how do you translate those elements and put them in a format where reality really can't be ambiguous? short of actually just filming the stage play.
Personally, I feel like the movie had some potential to do this well. Or at least to do it better than they ended up doing it. Just as stage shows have stage magic, movies have a number of tricks at their disposal for movie magic. I think where the movie really slipped up is in trying to continue to use stage magic techniques even as they're trying to impose a firmer reality on the story, and the two things don't reconcile well. The one scene that does really suspend reality is the song Round and Round, and they go way overboard with that. I'm honestly not sure what they're trying to do in this scene, but it doesn't have nearly the same impact. All that being said though, the cinematography and editing aren't terrible. They do create a nice atmosphere for the story, and like I said before, the Act 1 stuff is done decently enough. I think they missed the boat overall, but I can't say that they completely failed in this respect, so I give them a qualified pass.
And now for the overall transition of these elements, and if you've been paying attention at all, you probably already know how this round is going to end up. What's really sad to me is that the screenplay for this movie was written by Tom Jones and Harvey Schmidt, the people who wrote the original script for the stage play. But where that script was all sorts of brilliant, I don't know what they were thinking. Now let me first say, though, that I don't think that the stage musical is perfect. The fact that it does deal in abstractions pretty much gives it a universal and timeless appeal, but there are moments where it really shows its age, particularly in its portrayal of Native Americans. Also, there's the fact that of the 8 characters in this musical, only 1 is definitively female. 6 are definitively male, and the mute could go either way. Now, a lot of more recent productions have taken to changing the 2 fathers to 2 mothers in order to even out the genders a little bit more, but even then, you can tell the script was written for male characters. And the movie did update some of these elements, which is probably the reason for the different casting and characterization of Mortimer. But what about the other changes they made?
Where the hell do I even begin? Well, let's talk about one of the biggest problems in the movie. The dialogue. The dialogue in the original stage musical was absolutely beautiful and inspired, balancing somewhere between poetry and prose, between metaphor and reality, much like the show itself. In fact, Scotty, would you do me a favor and read a few examples of the dialogue from the stage musical, please?
In short, she was growing pretty, and the shock so stunned and thrilled her that she became almost immediately incurably insane. Please, God, please, don't let me be normal. I'm grown up, stable, willing to conform. I'm beyond such foolish notions. And yet, in spite of my knowledge, there is this girl. Is it fun to be a bandit? It has its moments. I think it must be fun. Do you ride on a great white horse? I used to. But no longer? I developed a saddle rash. Very painful. How unglamorous. I've never heard of a hero who had a saddle rash. Oh, it happens. Occupational hazard. No, Indians off stage left. Damn it.
Very nice. Now let's hear some dialogue from the movie.
Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon.
What if someone sees us?
Come on.
Our fathers.
I don't care about our fathers. I don't care about the wall. I don't care about anything but you. You like me better through a crack in the wall?
No! But you have to be my hero.
I do?
Yes, you have to be. Is it fun to be a bandit?
It has its moments, yes.
I think it must be fun. So, how do you do it? Do you ride into town pretending to be a carnival and then steal things when people aren't looking?
That's one way to go.
And what do you steal?
Whatever's most valuable, whatever's treasured most.
That's more like it.
And I die a little inside. I understand what they're trying to do. Since the story is set more firmly in reality, they're trying to make them sound more like real people. But good grief! I simply cannot believe that the same people who wrote the brilliant dialogue of the stage musical also penned this drivel. They also rewrote a couple of the songs. Notably, they changed the verses to metaphor to the point where, when they come to the unchanged chorus, it doesn't quite ring true.
I would study swordplay, and I'd stand and fight them all.
You'd fight them all.
They start to fall. Love conquers all. You are love.
I am love.
Better far than a metaphor can ever be.
You didn't use any metaphors, you dumbass! And then there's the song Rape, which has caused some issues in some other stage productions. As it's explained in both the stage play and the film, the term rape can also be used to mean abduction, and it's the term that El Gallo prefers to use in this case because it's short and businesslike. In the stage musical, this explanation is followed by a song in which El Gallo sings the word rape over and over again in that context. In the movie, however, once a very brief explanation is given, they've replaced that song with another one in which the word rape is never even uttered. And the replacement song is simply god awful.
Two lovers are meeting. Their happiness is fleeting. All at once, a band of men is standing there repeating.
Tom! Harvey! What are you doing? Other songs have significant cuts in them, and at least one of the songs that the two fathers sings is cut entirely, probably because of the musical ineptitude of the second father. Ultimately, though, the most egregious error that this movie commits is in firmly establishing the fourth wall. In the stage version, the fourth wall that exists between the characters and the audience is pretty much non-existent. Almost all of the characters address the audience at some point. And the reality of the story basically bends to the will of El Gallo, because he's not only manipulating the story from within the story itself, but also from outside the story. He's the one who's moving things along and manipulating events to further the plot. In both stories, the theme is that we all must die a bit before we can grow again, and so El Gallo is hurting, purposely, Matt and Louisa so that they can grow up and lose that romanticized vision of love that they've had. In the context of the stage musical, this makes perfect sense, and we don't hate El Gallo for all the horrible things he's doing, even though for all intents and purposes, he's the villain. And we see that while he did hurt them, he hurt himself a little bit too. So it just seems like something that he had to do because he has the power to help them grow up. The movie El Gallo, however, never exists outside the story. He's a character within the story with his carnival and his minions, and he does have magical abilities, but they're still within the context of this world. So when he says that he had to hurt them and toy with them and torture them, our response is, no you didn't, you douchebag! There was absolutely no justification for anything that this guy did to these people. He doesn't have any extraordinary perception or power, he's just a guy with a traveling carnival. And at the end of the movie, they hint that this is not the first time that he has done this either. He seems to have dozens of tokens from other women on his dashboard, and he thinks he has the right to do this stuff? What a pretentious prick! So I guess in the end we have to ask ourselves, is it even possible to adapt this story to movie form? Most of the reviews of this movie said that this musical never should have left the stage, and I can see where these reviewers are coming from. But I still hold out hope that this musical could work as a movie. Think about it, it's about the dichotomy of our romanticized perception of love and the harsh reality. If you're gonna make a film about that, use your filmmaking tools to your advantage. Save the harsh realities for the second act where all of the romance of the night is supposed to be revealed for what it really is. Use the magic of film to set up ambiguity, and for God's sake, don't be afraid to break the fourth wall. Not only will it be okay, it's the only way it's gonna work. Will it ever be done? I don't know, but I'd be interested to see it if it ever is. But until then, the stage musical is enough, and the movie fails in its transition. So with only one pass with qualifications, the Fantasticks movie gets a score of dreadful. So thanks for joining us for another episode of From Stage to Screen. Next time we'll be doing things a little bit differently and flipping it around, looking at a movie that was adapted for the stage. So until then, hey! Scotty, it was him.
What?
The fake hatter, white hoodie, backwards hat, come on, you couldn't tell the difference?
Damn, I thought he seemed a little negative.
He's getting more aggressive. We need to move ahead with Project Frodo. I'm coming home.
This is getting serious. I better put on my suit coat.